the day before, I'd gotten Brahman initiated. Brahman initiation, I should say, directly by Srila Prabhupada. So, which was a very ecstatic thing for me, obviously. But so, the first morning that I said my Gayatri mantra, I thought, well, I'll go down to Lake Michigan because we were in Evanston. And Northwestern University was only a few blocks away, and then Lake Michigan was there. And there was a nice park that they had built along the shoreline there, the lakefront. So I thought, I'm going to go down by the lake, and when the sun starts rising, I'll say my Gayatri mantra. So I chanted down there, and I got all set to say my Gayatri mantra. And up drives the Ford Lincoln Continental again. So door opens, and out steps His loving divine grace, Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada was about maybe 30 yards from me. And I said, Jai Srila Prabhupada, right? And I offered my obeisances. But Prabhupada's back was to me. So then all these sannyasis got out. Brahmananda was there as well. And Satsarup was there. And so they all kind of gathered, and when everyone was ready, Prabhupada turned and started walking right towards me. Meantime, I'm saying, I got the paper slipped there, because I hadn't even memorized the Gayatri mantra yet, and I was saying my Gayatri mantra as Prabhupada's walking by. So Prabhupada comes by, and he says, why is he not offering obeisances? Which I had. I actually had offered obeisances, but Prabhupada, his back was turned. This was like a really important lesson for me. So he said, why he's not offering obeisances? And they said, well, Prabhupada, he's chanting his Gayatri mantra. Prabhupada said, what is the value of such chanting when the spiritual master comes by and you do not offer obeisances? Now, I didn't hear that exactly. Otherwise, obviously I would offer my obeisances immediately. But Prabhupada said that. And so, and then he walked on. So what I was doing, I was trying to get this thing done really quick so I could go on the walk. So Sudama knew me. Pragosh was on his party, and we were friends since our childhood, and so he knew me. And so I got done with my Gayatri mantra, and I went running up to catch up with the morning walk. So Sudama sees me coming up, and so he comes to the back of the group, and I go, "Is it all right, March? Come?" And he goes, "Why didn't you offer your obeisances?" I said, "I did." He says, "When?" He said, "When Prabhupada got out of the car, I offered my obeisances." He said, "Well, Prabhupada didn't see it." And then he told me what Prabhupada said. And immediately, I couldn't breathe. I was suffocating. I was like, "Oh God, what is my worth? Why should I live another moment?" So, I actually carried that for a long time. And another thing happened. Prabhupada chastised me once when I was in Vrindavan. And 25 years later, after that incident on a Vyas Puja, I wrote one offering in glorification of Prabhupada. And I wrote how you had chastised me for doing this, which actually helped me for the rest of my life. Because never, since that time, have I not offered my obeisances before Gayatri Mantra and after saying Gayatri Mantra. And if I'm sitting in front of the deities and the curtain opens and there's Jagat Guru sitting on the altar, I'm offering obeisances. So sometimes I see devotees, they're chanting Gayatri Mantra, and the deities open, this happened, Prabhupada, and they're just chanting. And I'm thinking, you're off. What is the value of this chanting? So I wrote this offering to Prabhupada 25 years later, first of all, apologizing to Srila Prabhupada for committing offense and thanking Srila Prabhupada. That was just a few words. It impregnated my heart with so much love and appreciation for the spiritual master that I never took him, I was never familiar or took him lightly, ever again. And even though I didn't think I was taking him lightly then, but then I redoubled my determination to appreciate what it means to be in the association of the Jagat Guru. So I was on the Radha Damodar party for a little over 2 years. And Prabhupada on an occasion would speak to us. He would come, he met us in different places in Chicago and then in Atlanta. And in San Francisco, we went one Rath Yatra with Prabhupada there. But when we were in Atlanta, Prabhupada gave us a personal darshan. And he was stressing the importance of Brahmacari life. And he was saying how important in spiritual life it is to be Brahmacari. And he told us, if you stay Brahmacari, he was encouraging us to do that. You stay Brahmacari, then there's 75% chance of you going back to Godhead in this very life. If you take up Grihastha ashram, he said 25%. So he said, therefore, you should try to see all women as Mataji, as mother, and address them as that. Dear Mataji. That is a very respectful term, Mataji, meaning that just as your own mother you love and respect, the Mataji is even one of the gurus. It says one should not become father or mother. You know, there's the Pita Guru and the Mata Guru. So if you address all women as Matajis, you will not look at them as objects of sense gratification. Prabhupada came out and sat on the Vyasasan, and the devotees were in a particularly ecstatic mood that day. And so they chanted for almost an hour. He said it was a huge Guru Puja, and they just chanted and chanted and chanted. Everyone was dancing in ecstasy. And so at the end, they offered their obeisances, and Prabhupada did the Jayom prayers, and then Prabhupada spoke, and he said, if you do this Guru Puja every day, you go to this Guru Puja every day with your God brothers and God sisters, he said, then any difficulty that you have between each other will be immediately dissipated. He said, any problems you have between each other will be resolved by the performance of Guru Puja. So Prabhupada stressed the importance of it, and I've also had personal experience that when you do really get into Guru Puja, you really appreciate your God brothers and God sisters, and especially you appreciate Srila Prabhupada. The temple presidents and the GBC and sannyasis were with Prabhupada, and they were going on a morning walk. And Prabhupada was walking, he had his cane, he was walking along, they were going towards the Ganga. And so some of the leaders took that opportunity to start, complaining to Prabhupada that this person, he's in my zone, he's doing this, he wasn't authorized, and this person's coming back and saying, Prabhupada, but this is going on, and these people are doing this and this, and one after another,
people were lodging complaints and kind of doing a little backbiting. So Prabhupada was walking with his cane, he wasn't saying anything, and then all of a sudden Prabhupada stopped and put his cane down. And he turned around and he whipped his cane around and he went, all of you, made this big sweeping motion with his arm. He said, all of you have come simply to discourage, and I have come only to encourage. And then he did it again. All of you have come simply to discourage, and I have come only to encourage. And then he turned around and started walking. And all of a sudden, he said that all the Prabhus started going, please accept my humble obeisances, Prabhu, please accept mine, forgive my offenses. So I took that to heart, and I thought, if I can remember this, whatever happens in my life and whoever I associate with, I think I can make a better impression by following this instruction of Srila Prabhupada.
In Chicago, Prabhupada had a big deity installation of Gaura-Nitai deities, 1975. And so there was I think 4 sets of Gaura-Nitai deities, and to put on each one of the buses. So Prabhupada was saying, he was talking about Sankirtan and doing book distribution. And he said, if you, in the class, he was talking about Vishwamitra Muni had performed tapasya for 60,000 years, heavy tapasya. He said, so you can get the same benefit of this tapasya on a few days of Sankirtan. A few days on Sankirtan is equivalent to 60,000 years of tapasya by Vishwamitra Muni. And everyone was, Haribo! So that's the mercy of Srila Prabhupada to give us this great process. As we were walking out the door, we're all leaving, there was, about 80 of us. And Pragosh Prabhu, my dear friend, stopped and went to Prabhupada and said, Srila Prabhupada, thank you so much for bringing us to Mayapur, Sridham Mayapur. And Prabhupada said, oh, Sridham Mayapur is your home. This is your home. This is all of your home. He said, actually, the West is only for preaching and sense gratification. So if you're not preaching, you should be home. And Sridham Mayapur. It was the full moon night in the Sarat season. It was, I believe that's called the Rasa Purnima. So Krishna performs his Ras Leela with the gopis. So Panchadevita Maharaj came in and said, Srila Prabhupada, you want to hear the chapters of the Ras Leela? And Prabhupada said, yes, that would be nice. So Maharaj actually sat down. It's 5 chapters, right? 5. And so he starts reading. Now it takes about 3 hours to read the full, 5 chapters. So at that time I was massaging Prabhupada's feet. Actually, I got to massage Prabhupada's feet every day after that one day. So, it's like somehow or other I'd fit it in like I was Prabhupada's foot massager. So there I was in Vrindavan on Ras Purnima. in Sri Vrindavan Dham, at the lotus feet of the Jagat Guru, at Krishna Balaram Mandir, listening to the Ras Leela of Krishna and the Gopis with His Divine Grace. So he's reading and reading, and I'm thinking, this is like, I can't get any higher than this, right? I was actually thinking, if I had any pious activity, I would die right now. Right now, if I died right now, that would be perfection, if I'm pious. If I had any pious credits, and of course I'm so sinful, here I am still, 25 years later, I'm still alive. But I was thinking, this is it, this is the perfection. Listening to Krishna Katha, serving the Jagat Guru's lotus feet in Vrindavan. So Maharaj is reading and reading and reading, and everyone's like listening, and I'm looking at Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had his eyes closed, and then I started wondering, is he listening, or is maybe he dozed off, or and after about 2 hours, you know how in the Krishna book Prabhupada will quote different shlokas. So he made a quote, and Maharaj was reading the Sanskrit. It's like Priyamanani, right? And he said something Priyamanani or something, whatever. He mispronounced the word. And immediately Prabhupada went, Priyamanani. And then he went back and closed his eyes. So it was like, and again, all the hairs on my body stood on end, because Prabhupada was in rapt attention. He was in samadhi. He was just absorbed in hearing the pastimes of Krishna from his own Krishna book. And so at the end, Maharaj said, Prabhupada, maybe we can do this every night. He said, yes. We're simply here to enjoy. We even had like kirtan competitions. Remember, one temple would come out, Chicago temple would do their thing, LA would do their thing, the Radha Damodar party would do their thing, London would do their thing, like that. So everyone was very fired up about chanting. But there was one of our God brothers who didn't like it. So he was up in Prabhupada's room, and the Radha Damodar boys were up there. And so he said, Prabhupada, it's getting pretty crazy out there. All that dancing and like wild men. It's just completely crazy. Prabhupada stopped and went, yes. When you become a lover of Krishna, you dance just like a madman. So all the Radha Damodar boys went, Haribol! So Bhakta True Swami, he came in early 77, and Prabhupada immediately gave him first and second initiation and said, he is not a new man, this movement. And then about, a couple weeks later, Prabhupada was up on the Lotus building, just with Bhakta True Swami. And they were walking together. And Prabhupada said, you have had billions of births. Billions. And all of us have had billions of births. And we've always given those births and those lives simply to sense gratification. He said, if you give one birth to Krishna, you will not be the loser. See what happens. You will not be the loser. Just give one to Krishna. And he said, and if you're not satisfied, you still get more births. I mean, Prabhupada was like, matter of fact, it's just like saying, the sun rises every single day. So Prabhupada is also looking at the transmigration. You'll get more births. Don't worry. You can get billions of births. But give one to Krishna and see what happens. And so, like, a week later, he took sannyas. And he's maintained his sannyas vows ever since by giving this one birth to Krishna. So, at any point in time, you can give the birth to Krishna. That's what I'm hoping. Yeah, I remember one time, Prabhupada called Bhakta True Swami over to him and came to him very humbly serving Prabhupada. And Prabhupada started talking to him in Bengali. And then Bhakta True Swami started laughing, and Prabhupada started laughing. And I was like completely obvious. They were sharing this really intimate Bengali moment. And, that sweet smile that Bhakta True Swami had, and Prabhupada was smiling and was enjoying this like rasa with them. And I was thinking, he's so fortunate he can talk directly to Prabhupada in his native tongue. I was thinking, I wonder what that joke was about, But Prabhupada was carrying on like that, and finally Prabhupada, he was doing so many things and looking, he said, look at this body. It's useless, completely useless. And he said, I am practically proving that life does not come from a bag of bones. We kind of half chuckled and half were like stunned in amazement. He was just he just transcended the whole situation. But just defying the logic of science and practically proving that life does not come from a bag of bones. When we first arrived in Vrindavan, it was the day after, or maybe it wasn't the day after actually, anyhow. We arrived in Vrindavan and checked into the guest house, Krishna Balaram guest house, Govardhan Das and myself. And we were in our room like 3 minutes, and we heard a knock on the door, and Supendra. He said, Prabhupada wants to see you right away. So, he asked for Govardhan because he was temple president. And they just had this magnificent wedding for Leka Shavanti, which is Walter Reuther's daughter. And, it was a big splash. Ambarish was like the best man. So was Ford and Reuther, and Time Magazine covered it, New York Times, it was Chicago Tribune, Detroit Free Press, everything. Covered the whole country, tremendous publicity, and it was a magnificent preaching opportunity. And as they say, they got reviews. So Prabhupada asked, see Govardhan. So we came out of the room. We hadn't seen Prabhupada yet. And we went into as you go into the room now, and I'm not sure if it was the same layout or what, but how it has Prabhupada's like office. So we kind of went through there. We didn't go directly in Prabhupada's bedroom. Went through the office, and then we went around to the garden, Prabhupada's garden. And we met with Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Tamal stopped and said, listen, before you go in to see Srila Prabhupada, I just want to prepare you for it. He says, when you see Prabhupada, it'll be like you've never seen him before. It's not Prabhupada robust and healthy, and it's might be a little shocking and painful for you. He said, but don't cry. He didn't want to create any anxiety for Prabhupada. He said, don't cry. He says, and don't say anything negative. Just say encouraging things. We're just trying to say encouraging things to Prabhupada, to uplift Prabhupada's spirit, to make Prabhupada feel enthused, to go on preaching and staying with us for another at least 10 years. So don't look shocked, don't be sad. So we thought, okay, we're prepared, mentally to do this. So we came around to the head of Prabhupada's bed and we went to Prabhupada's feet and we offered our obeisances, and then we stood up and we saw Prabhupada laying there. And it was shocking to see Prabhupada in that condition. And immediately Govardhan lost it, and he had a chadar and he covered his mouth and he was sobbing quietly. And Prabhupada said, he smiled and said, oh, who is this? Who has come? We were standing right at Prabhupada's foot of Prabhupada's bed. And Tamal said, it's Govardhan and Udayananda from Detroit, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, how are you? Is your accommodations okay? Did you get prasadam? Are you comfortable? Is everything okay? Is this nice? Is Krishna Balaram guest house okay for you? I said, yes, Srila. Govardhan couldn't talk. He was weeping. And I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, it's first class. Thank you so much for taking such good care of us. And he said, and are the devotees in Detroit, are they happy? Are they taking prasadam? And are they happy in Krishna consciousness? And how is Lake Shavanti and Ambarish? Prabhupada asked about Ambarish. And are they happy in chanting Hare Krishna? And are they happy in Krishna consciousness? And how is the temple and deity worship and the neighborhood? Are you preaching in the neighborhood? And Prabhupada just went on, and he was just talking about everyone else's well-being. He just was like, he was in this condition that it was explained to me that the Kaviraj who was treating Srila Prabhupada had treated thousands of people with the same condition. And he said, and it's so painful that the people literally writhe in pain. It's so painful, they can barely tolerate the pain. They become incoherent. They become beside themselves, delirious. And Prabhupada was not only so crystal clear in his consciousness, but he was just concerned about the well-being of others. Never once did he say, oh, look at my condition, look at how I'm suffering, look at this. This is all due to this, that, and the other. Never once. It was just, how are you? And I was trying to, wrap my mind around how could a person be like this in this condition? So selfish.
My godbrother, Pragosh Prabhu, one time he went to Washington, D.C., where Prabhupada was at. He was distributing books at the airport. But he was actually based in New York. And one day he came back from Sankirtan, and Prabhupada saw him. And he was just getting out of the van, and Prabhupada said, where have you been? He offered his obeisances, and he said, where have you been? He says, I've been out distributing books, Srila Prabhupada. And he said, come with me. So Prabhupada took him into his room. And so, you'll have to ask him about all the details. But one of the things that was very charming that Prabhupada said was, he said, so where are you doing your service these days? And He says, I'm in New York, Prabhupada, in the 55th Street Temple. And he said, oh, you're in New York? He said, I also started in New York. As if, you know, not every single devotee in the movement knew everything about Prabhupada, especially where he started, but Prabhupada was thinking like that. I started in New York, like that. So Prabhupada was, you know, Prabhupada was talking in Vrindavan. He was talking about going to Govardhan. He was thinking about Govardhan, and of course they were making plans to go to Govardhan and so on, and like that. But it wasn't always, Prabhupada wasn't like just focused on Govardhan. As a matter of fact, when different things came in, different news items came in and letters would come into Prabhupada, Prabhupada would become inspired. So something came in about the preachers in New York, what the preaching that was going on, the book distribution was going on. And Prabhupada said, yes, that's what I should do. I should simply give up laying here in Vrindavan. I should go out and preach. And he said, I should go. You should take me to the New York temple. And he says, and if I die, you should put my tomb on top of the New York temple, Radha Govinda temple on 55th Street. He says, I want to die preaching with my New York preachers, like that. So we can only know how important that temple was to Prabhupada. And of course, what a catastrophe it is having lost that temple. Prabhupada said, place my tomb on the top of 55th Street Temple.
Je anilo premadana koruna prachu